This podcast episode is made possible by wowdigital.com, your trusted partner for nonprofit and charity website and design. Imagine a world where artificial intelligence boosts your fundraising efforts and strengthens donor trust. That sounds intriguing, right? Stay tuned as we explore this fascinating topic with our expert guest, Joanne Toller, the cause specialist. Welcome to the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. I'm your host, as usual. I'm David, and in this episode, we're going to be talking all things AI when fundraising with Joanne Toller. Joanne is a pioneer in fundraising and nonprofit marketing since 1994. She empowers nonprofit professionals with advanced digital skills. With 3 decades of experience, she transforms organizations and careers as a dedicated coach and trainer. Contact Joanne for a consult and discover her tailored programs at nonprofit-training.org. Joanne, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back as a guest.
Yeah, I'm super excited, especially given the topic that we are talking about.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I have to say about AI is I think there's a lot of people that are really worried and concerned about AI. Like, AI is coming for my job. AI is going to take over. I don't know what to do with AI. How do I leverage that? And my kind of go-to line is AI isn't going to take your job, but somebody who knows AI and can leverage it will. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that AI will help you do your job better. So I have an example. There is a fellow that I'm working with, and he's amazing one-on-one. He's very charismatic. He's passionate about his cause. They're doing great things, but sit him down in front of a computer and his brain just goes, he can't do it. He cannot write to save his life, but yet he can speak it. So when we were doing his AI policy and I asked him, well, how and why do you use AI and how does it benefit you? It's all about how he can sit down and take all of that stuff out of his head and then get AI to help him write it. But then he takes it back and goes through it and gives it that human touch and personalizes it and how much it's helped him to upskill. Writing is just not an area that he's good at. Or maybe you are a social media person and you can't do graphic design. Well, AI can help you with creative. So it can help you upskill in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I jokingly say, and even like directly to my team, AI, ChatGPT, it's our best employee. It's so versatile, can do so many things, but it doesn't do anything 100%. I feel like it gets us maybe 70% of the way there. And then we need to apply our brains, our opinions, our thoughts, our language, our intonation, our culture into it, because it doesn't really get that type of stuff out of the box.
No, and that goes right down to what is AI, and it's built to simulate human intelligence and not replace it. So, taking that, what stakeholders think of AI and are they afraid of it? Because there are definitely 2 camps. There's the pro AI and the absolutely not in the nonprofit space. There's those 2 camps. So I like to educate them on what is it and how it's everywhere. It's built into so many of the programs we already use. We're talking about weak AI. We're not talking about super intelligent AI, the killer robot AI. We're talking about, some programming and some algorithms that work to help simulate human intelligence. We're not at the killer robot phase yet, so that's not what we're using in our nonprofit work.
And AI has been around for quite some time. Myself, I love to play with technology, right? So as soon as I kind of learned about AI, I was like, oh, okay, cool. What can I make this thing do or not do? But anybody we'll see if this activates any devices I have in my office here. But if you have a Google device, you say, hey, Google, or hey, Siri, or Alexa, or whatever, that's kind of like the crude AI versus the super intelligent AI that you're referring to. And actually, I have a story. The other day, I was looking to put an email together for something. Every so often, I'll hop into AI and I'll be like, all right, I need you to act as my VP of marketing. I need an email to this person, blah, blah, blah. And I gave it like the whole prompt. And what it output was something very kind of mediocre. It didn't have like nice language flow to it, things like that. I put back into the prompt, this sounds too robotic. There's way too much jargon. Rewrite it as if there was a human that had actually written this thing. And what it output after that was actually pretty good. I made some edits to it, but it was pretty great just using it like that.
Yeah, prompt engineering. There is a whole whole thing I do on that as well. But I really do want to address the stakeholder perception thing because I know there's going to be a lot of nonprofit professionals who either their executive director or the board or their donors, they don't get it and they don't understand it. And the more we can educate them on AI and then also address their concerns around AI, the better chance we have at being able to implement some of this. And another big one that I always want to make sure to get out there is the data protection and privacy, that we are not inputting sensitive information into these models. I mean, there are some specifically built for that are very, very protected and secure. Those are professional platforms, not ChatGPT. We're not sticking donor data or donor information into ChatGPT, and making sure that we have those policies and that everyone is using it. Because I'm going to say this too, everybody's using it. You might be an executive director and think, oh no, we don't use AI. Somebody in your organization's using AI. They're using it. So you want to make sure that they're well trained on privacy, human oversight, all of these things that we're talking about.
For sure. So there's security of information and privacy protection and all that type of stuff. If you want to run AI on batches of data, anonymize the data. There's stuff that you can do. So it's like, these are the 80 donations we got. Here are the values. Here are the dates. But you don't necessarily need to have people's names, email addresses, anything like that. And then you could ask it to maybe run some reports. You can do stuff like that in spreadsheets pretty easily. But it's fun to kind of play with in that kind of way. So outside of security and data protection, are there any other concerns that nonprofits face around AI with regards to fundraising?
Yeah, misinformation, depending on how the AI was trained. But like, look at the internet. There's so much misinformation out there. You know, like I used to do some blog writing for a client. We had to have stats in there. And I would always double check those stats because half the time they weren't correct. And I don't want to be just, ChatGPT make this and then put it out there into the world when it could be wrong. And a lot of the concerns that are coming out right now too are using AI. So I could, in theory, build let's say Kevin Costner. I could make an avatar of him. I could clone his voice and then I could have him do a commercial for us. Well, that's not Kevin Costner doing a commercial, a spokesperson's for us. That's AI. And I would never, ever do that kind of thing.
So there's an ethical boundary there for sure.
Ethical, yes.
Like AI, it's a learning model. It doesn't create anything new. What it does is it takes information that it has learned and gathered to create something that feels like it's new, but it's based off of things that it learned. As you were talking about stats, I remember that I wanted some stats for something. There was like a blog article that I was putting together, and this was the early days of ChatGPT. So this is probably about 2 years ago. And I said, I need some stats around this. What would be an interesting case study, right? And it made up an organization and it made up these stats. And I was like, hold on a second. I Googled the organization and there's not a single result on Google. If there's not a single result on Google, there's something a little bit fishy. But one of the things in terms of like prompts is asking it to cite the source. But just asking it to cite the source isn't good enough. You need to go to the source and you need to check it to make sure that it's valid. So ChatGPT, whatever tool you're using, you still need to fact check. You still need to double check, make sure it's accurate, that it fits, that it's not taking something out of context as well, because that's really easy to do.
Yeah. And whenever I work with organizations and help them build their AI policy, which is actually super easy, you don't need to hire me to do it. It is super easy. There's certain things we go through, and that human oversight and fact checking is a big component. So within it, we have an introduction that talks about how and why we're using AI so that you are addressing those stakeholders right away. And then we go into how we educate and train our staff, and then our policies around data protection, our policies around human oversight, and then any kind of commitment to ethical use, how we're going to stay abreast of what's going on. And there's some things happening with different governments and how they're looking at it now. And I mean, I know you put your podcasts on YouTube. I have YouTube. YouTube actually asks you now, is there any AI in your work?
Yeah, I like to think of AI as helpful brainstorming tool and functionality, get the juices flowing. If we were going to put a podcast episode together, right? What are some topics that I could talk about? What are some things that we can maybe dive into? Like there's all kinds of things like that. How do you see the role of AI in fundraising?
Well, speaking of YouTube, I'm working on a video right now and it kills me that I'm doing but for grant writing using AI. But again, it's just a little piece because sometimes they ask you questions in the grant proposal where your brain just shuts off. Like, what are they saying here? I don't understand. But using ChatGPT to help flesh all of that out. I use Instrumental for grant writing or for grant research. Huge fan of theirs. They're coming out with an AI grant writing feature. So many of these. Give Butter is another platform that I use quite a bit. They're coming out with AI. So many of them have AI built right into it now that I see a lot more using it for personalized communications, but especially for the predictive analytics. Now we have a tool for those of us like me that are math impaired that I can go and take it. Like I really struggle with math. Take it, put it in, and then have it help me analyze the data, but making sure that I take out any personal information. Because I always talk about it's so important, data-driven decisions.
Absolutely. In my agency, we've got KPIs and scorecards and metrics, and we've got spreadsheets with all kinds of data and stuff. And I wanted to kind of merge them and pull data from here and pull data from there. And I was like, okay, what can I get this AI to help me with to save me a whole whack of time? And it probably took about 2 hours of prompting to get the right formula. But essentially, it gave me like a 50-line formula for Google Sheets that brought in all the pieces that I needed. So now I have a scorecard that's being dynamically generated with the data from multiple sources. So we can look at this, and I look at it actually quite often to go, okay, this is real-time insight into what things are going on in my agency in the business. How's it going with employees, with our clients, et cetera, et cetera. Imagine if you could do that on the fundraising side with like big donors that you're cultivating to help get reports automated out of systems. Not that the AI is running continually against the data, but that you've got formulas to bring data in, MySQL queries, different kinds of scripts or whatever to formulate that to help you with your decision making.
Yeah, there's a program that I've recently started to use. It's going to take me a while, but it's Mind Studio, where I can really begin to create my own so that I have my data sets and then I have queries. And it's kind of like a mind map, but yet with AI, it's so cool. I tend to completely tech out on these things because I've used it for formula and code. I've used it to write code. I don't know that the average nonprofit would, but the cost savings that it can provide. I just look at things like branding. You're rebranding your nonprofit. You need a logo. There's AI that can help you do that in vector files so that it's a professional logo. You need to write all your new website copy. You need to build a website. Right? There's platforms that help you do that. There's just pretty much anything that you can think of. There is a platform, usually with AI behind it, that's available to you.
The caveat to that, I've played around with some of the AI, like web page mock-up stuff and the logo generators. They all kind of tend to produce, at least what I've seen so far, they all kind of look the same. So, if you do want to stand out, you got to be really explicit with your prompt or, just hire the people that will get it done for you. AI is really great for like the quick things, but there's a limit to it, at least right now. Maybe by the time this episode airs, things will be might be different. The landscape is changing so quickly.
I've seen some good logo generation ones. The ones that I've seen lacking are the video, the text to video and image to video. I'm waiting for Sora to come out and see how that is, but any of the ones I've used haven't been that great. It takes a lot of prompting and a lot of credits to get it to do what I want it to do.
For sure. So you mentioned it briefly around policies. What type of policies and regulations should nonprofits be thinking of? You mentioned it's kind of easy to do, but what should they think about when they're even putting it together as well?
I like to start with how and why we're using AI. What are the benefits to it and get clear on that. And then from there, you're going to detail how you handle privacy, which we should all have privacy policy anyway for donors. So how you're going to address that. And then another section for that human oversight and your commitment to transparency. And I've got a little workbook on it that I can share that makes it a lot easier, including an example. I'd be more than happy to share that because, at this stage in the game, there isn't really any government policies around it. Now, there is a bill in play right now, or there is some stuff with the government of Canada is looking at, I think it's Bill C-27, the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act. So they're looking, and I believe it's with a committee right now. They're going to be looking at setting up policies around misuse or malicious use of AI, and then maybe some framework around development of AI. Don't quote me on that. It's a massive read. So I'm just sort of waiting until it gets a little bit closer to the end, and then I'll go through it. So there's that.
Or you can take it and put it into AI and tell it to give you the 15 bullet summary of it.
Yeah, that's very true. Get AI to answer that one for me. I know that a bunch of the big players in the AI world got together on protecting children around AI. That was pretty neat to see. That was an initiative with All Tech is Human. There was a bunch of the different big players got together on that one. So there are things happening. There's a big fundraising conference on AI coming up as well.
Okay.
So just within that policy, kind of detailing how you're going to keep abreast of everything.
Yeah, I think it's important to have somebody in the team be the person that wears the hat on keeping up to date with the latest trends and insights and tools. I think there's some website out there, don't remember the exact name, we'll have it in the show notes. I think it's called, there's an AI for that or something like that, where you can go and you can put like, I need an app to create something or whatever. And sure enough, there's like thousands and thousands of apps, but they're all primarily built off the same backend engine. So it's really about how is being leveraged. And is there something out there that you can use? And really, it kind of comes down to playing with it, right? Is it something that you can actually do something with on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a daily basis, and making it part of the workflow and your process so that you can achieve more and do more efficiently?
Yeah, very true. There's a fellow I follow on YouTube, Matt Wolf. I love him. He has all of the AI news, so it really helps. And I found some really great programs from him as well. Really keeps me abreast of what's going on so that I can help share that information.
That's awesome. Do you have any favorite AI tools that are kind of like your go-to?
Okay, well, my go-to is ChatGPT. I know there's so many others, but that's just my go-to. And then Dolly, I know there's Midjourney and a few others. That's my go-to. Suno is probably my favorite. So it generates AI music. I run a Tooltip Tuesday, so I went in and had it create a Tooltip Tuesday theme song for me. So much fun. It makes these theme songs and they're unique. And then I did another one just for me. I have a theme song now. 11 Labs is another one. So I have a book on strategic planning and I've been meaning to do the audio version. So rather than sitting in front of my microphone for hours, I cloned my voice and got it to do the audio version in minutes. It's crazy what AI can do. If anything generative, I love to play with.
It's a little bit scary how some of these things are actually working. And the fact that I've heard some scary stories in the media about bullying in schools where people get somebody's photo and then they use AI to generate fake images and stuff like that. But there's a lot of good that it can be used for. So keep that in mind as you're playing with this, as you're exploring it, that there are good uses for the stuff. It doesn't always have to be for nefarious reasons or anything like that. Think about headshots of your board of directors that you want on the website. I mean, it would be great if you could get them all together and then hire a photographer to come and shoot them and then they all kind of look the same. But quite often you'll end up with photos. One's in somebody's backyard in the summer, one is on the mountain in the winter, and being able to use AI to clean them up and make them all kind of look similar, that would be a really easy use as well. And you can do that.
That would be a great use. And I mean, with permission, right? Always ethical AI. And I think that a lot of these policies, I mean, God bless Canada for being forward thinking. And one of the things I was reading on it, how are they going to police this, right? So that if there is a child that does that goes out and bullies somebody else with fake AI, then there can be repercussions. It will be built into the criminal code somehow, because I think that's very important.
Absolutely. On a happier note, what do you see as like a future trend in the use of AI in fundraising and nonprofits?
Well, I just flashed back to 1994. Okay, so I started fundraising in 1994, and I remember the big thing back then was websites. All these nonprofits thinking, man, it's just a fad. The internet's just a fad. And there were some who were scrambling. How are we going to do this? And how expensive it was for them to put together their websites. And I think this is the same thing that's happening right now, that it's here to stay. We need to accept it, embrace it, and find good ethical ways to use it. And it's just here to stay. It's like the internet. So either you're on board now as an early adopter, or you're going to be scrambling later on to try and figure it out then and catch up. Social media fundraising was another thing. I mean, back in 2007, when I jumped on board the social media fundraising game, and it was the same thing then, and look at those early adopters now. They've got thousands and thousands of followers, where the ones who just started a few years ago are scrambling to catch up.
I remember hearing a story, I don't know how legitimate or not it is, but let's presume it's real. When telephones were kind of introduced in the workplace, there was a really big resistance to allowing employees to have a phone on their desk, thinking that employees are going to be sitting on the phone, chatting away all day and talking with their friends or their family or whatever. Didn't happen to be the case. It's another tool that allows them to make it easier, whether you're in sales or internal or whatever, if you can pick up the phone and call somebody. Same thing kind of happened with computers. Oh, they're just going to be there. They're going to be playing solitaire or Minesweeper or whatever, like all day. Internet came. Oh, they're going to be playing around and like goofing off all day. No, it's an enablement tool, right? It's something that's going to allow us to do more faster, right? This is the AI revolution. And I think that COVID really ramped that piece up a lot harder and a lot faster in terms of like a technology revolution. We had the industrial revolution. This is the technology revolution that we're in right now. And I think it's just going to make it easier for people to connect with one another. We're recording this on Zoom, right? For us to have gotten together, you're traveling right now, right? For us to have gotten together in person to record something with like a film crew or whatever, like, come on, that would have been way more difficult to coordinate.
Yeah, well, it's certainly changed my work. So again, from 1994 to fundraising now, I mean, even this grant writing thing that I'm working on right now, back in the olden days, there wasn't even platforms to do grant research on. There was nothing. Our database was a spreadsheet. It was so different than what it is today. And now I use AI in almost everything that I do. Even my blog articles, I use AI to generate the photos on it. Actually, I start with an email to my subscribers, turn it into a YouTube script, boom, it's a blog, then it's a social media post. Like I've taken a few hours, if not a whole day worth of work and condensed it down so that now I'm freed up to do more with clients and, take calls from nonprofits. So
amazing. Joanne, some fantastic insights. Love the conversation. We could probably sit and chat for like the next 3 days straight.
Well, we haven't even really got into prompt engineering yet.
I hope that the folks that have been listening have been able to get some great advice and insights from you. And if you can challenge anybody listening to this episode with something, what would that challenge be?
Create an AI policy. Create an AI policy. And then take that policy and, on your website, you should have your privacy policy and all that. Link that right there, and put it in the footer of your emails and just make sure that you're sharing that and educating your stakeholders on, yes, AI is here to stay, but we're going to be responsible about it. Here's how we're going to use it. And here's how it's going to help you, right? That people, if you can explain how it's going to help the mission and help you be a better nonprofit, then they'll get it.
Exactly. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
The website is actually the causespecialist.ca. That's the best website to get a hold of me. The other one's just a training website, or just give me a call. I'm always happy to talk to nonprofits.
Amazing. And you mentioned a giveaway, a download for creating an AI policy. Where can they grab that?
I can send that to you and then they can just go in there and grab it there. That's probably the easiest.
Joanne, thanks again so much for coming on the show again. We'll probably have you back. We'll dig into some prompt engineering and stuff around that.
Or killer robots when we get to the killer robots phase.
Yeah. Killer robots always reminds me of a Saturday Night Live skit about laser cats. I don't know if you remember that. We'll link to that video from the show notes page. It's on YouTube. So for everybody listening, if you want the link to the giveaway around the nonprofit AI policy, just head over to our podcast page at nonprofitdigitalsuccess.com. Click on this episode for all the details. And until next time, keep on being successful.